English. Did you know that it used to be a luxury hotel? Oh, yes, a luxury hotel. This luxury hotel. Oh my God, Ponce de Leon, with Henry Flagler, which is standing right here. But before we tell you, I'm going to have the professional historian. Oh, yes, history nut, Kevin Rose, right here. Tell us all about those fabulous stories, which are history.
Awesome. Well, welcome to St. Augustine. Now, we are standing in the center of Henry Flagler's St. Augustine. Now, prior to Mr. Flagler coming here, St. Augustine was a very quiet little town and basically fading away, being replaced by Jacksonville. Henry Flagler was the founder of Standard Oil. He was one of the richest men in the country. He's actually the second richest man in the country at one point. And the only man richer than him was his own business partner, John D. Rockefeller. But his wife gets sick with tuberculosis. And her doctors recommend that she come to Florida to enjoy the winter season, hopefully help those symptoms of tuberculosis. And that's his first introduction to Florida. Now, she passes away in 1881. They have been staying in Jacksonville for 3 years during the winters at that point. She passes away. But in 1883, Henry Flagler remarries her nurse. A little bit suspicious, but he does. And they honeymoon in Florida. And Henry's already seen Florida now. He sees a lot of potential here and a lot of opportunity. So they come to Florida on their honeymoon, and eventually they make it to St. Augustine. And while they're here, Mr. Flagler notices that we have two problems in Florida. First of all, we don't have good accommodations. Second of all, we don't have transportation to get here. Very difficult to get here. So he creates the Florida East Coast Railroad, a thriving company to this very day, runs up and down the eastern seaboard of Florida. And he brings his rail right off the eastern seaboard rail in Jacksonville, right into St. Augustine, Florida. And then he builds luxury hotels. The railroad is built so his hotel guests can get here with ease and style and comfort. So he constructs Flagler constructs his first luxury hotel, the Ponce de Leon Hotel, which opens January 10th of 1888. And when he opens this, it is considered the most luxurious hotel in the world. 540 luxury rooms. Least expensive room, $5 per night. Most expensive, $39 per night. But that's $1888. In today's money, your least expensive room would be about $163 a night, and the most expensive better than $1,250. Now, it was completely sold out its first 7 years and did very well for itself after that. But even as the hotel was being constructed, Mr. Flagler realized he was going to have a problem. The problem was there's really nothing fun to do in 1880 St. Augustine. He decides to construct a second hotel. Behind me is the Alcazar Hotel, today's Leitner Museum, but it opens January of 1889, the following year from the Ponce de Leon. It's really a hotel in name only. It's only going to have about 75 rooms in it, but it's going to have all the amenities inside, all the fun stuff to do. Inside the Alcazar, you'd have things like bowling alleys and gentlemen's clubs, gambling halls and taverns, wet and dry saunas, exercise rooms. Out back was an entire Italian-style plaza with croquet, clay tennis courts, and you could even learn to ride a bicycle at the Alcazar Bicycle Academy. It was all the rage at the time. But the centerpiece of the hotel, toward the back end of the hotel, there's a 3-story section of the hotel which contained the world's largest indoor swimming pool at the time.
Wow.
Actually, a city block long it was. Now, the 2 levels above the pool have an opening in the floor, the shape of the pool, so the pool was actually open all the way to the roof. And the roof at that time was made up of glass windows. You could swim under the stars at the Alcazar. Wow. But it got even better than that. Your 2 levels above the pool were your ballrooms. When they had their big gala events at the hotel, they would put a gondola in the pool, put the orchestra in the boat to play for the ballrooms above. Nothing was too extravagant. Now, the reason we have all this Moorish Renaissance architecture here in St. Augustine is actually not because we're a Spanish colony. It comes back around to us because of the building to my right-hand side. Today, it's the Villa Zareta Museum. Built in 1883 by Franklin Smith as his winter home, which he called the Villa Zareta. Imagine that. Now, Franklin Smith was a well-to-do gentleman from Boston, Massachusetts. Makes his big money in the Civil War, dealing with the War Department, selling them metals and tools. But he is also a world traveler. He has been to Europe. He has seen the Alhambra Castle in Granada, Spain, and decides to mimic that huge Moorish fortress in the building of his winter home. And it does look like a tiny portion of that monstrous fortress. But the fortress is cut stone, and that's poured concrete. He got that idea from a chateau he saw in Lake Geneva. As an amateur architect, he meshed those two together and came up with his winter home. Henry Flagler is not a world traveler, never goes to Europe, never even makes it to California. Henry hates to travel, and he'd never seen anything like that, well, until he came to St. Augustine, and he loved it, so much so that he had his architects copied in everything he builds here. Now, they tamped it down to Moorish Renaissance, and that it was straight Moorish, but it's the motivation for the architecture as well as the poured concrete construction technique. Henry always said, even though he'd never personally been to Europe, he always thought of St. Augustine as a European city in North America. So he built everything he did with that thought in mind. He wanted to keep it a European city, and I think he accomplished all that.
Oh, he sure did. I am serious because I've traveled all over Europe and I feel like I'm in Europe right now. Maybe that's why I decided to really show the world what St. Augustine is about. I mean, I feel like I'm, I don't know, in Spain, Moorish, Morocco, wherever. I mean, the architecture sets the tone for the vibe in the city. I really, truly do believe that. So all these buildings put together in order as he built them, what inspired him other than, I mean, yeah, railroad tycoon and then all these architects. I mean, I saw things like Tiffany glass in there. I want to talk
Absolutely.
about all those details because those are the things that makes us, oh my God, it makes me, I get chills from it.
So people look at the Tiffany glass in
yes.
these Flagler structures and they think, wow, he actually put Tiffany glass in there. We're recording. Yeah. Idiot. Sorry
We're
about
telling
that.
stories. We're telling history.
Sorry
He's
about
the
that.
best. No, don't be sorry. You're the best guide in town, guys. Nothing but best for us. So, I mean, we're getting the real stories here, unfiltered and unedited, real stories. Oh, he
So
had me at the purple shirt, though. I got to tell you that much. No, I'm kidding. Go on, go on.
The
Sorry.
Tiffany glass. Now everybody looks at Tiffany glass and go,
Tiffany.
wow, Flagler spent enough money to put Tiffany glass in this structure. It actually works the other way around. Now the Tiffany jewelry company had been around 100 years when Flagler comes into having a lot of money. But Tiffany glass, their very first corporate client, Henry Morrison Flagler, he puts Tiffany on the map. It's not the other way around. Now, this building behind us contains over 200 specific Tiffany stained glass windows. In the ballroom alone are 72. And it's the largest display of Tiffany stained glass windows in the world.
Really?
The Tiffany Museum has more, but on display in a structure, this is the #1. Reportedly worth more than $30 million.
Just in glass.
Just the glass.
Oh, would I have loved to have Flagler as one of my clients because it sounds like he went to town with decor and details, not just the Tiffany glass, but all the other things. Like when we walk into the rotunda, you'll see. And everything has a meaning. I really, truly do see that on the ceilings and all of that.
You hit something that I really enjoy. The architects from that period. First of all, Hastings and Carrera. That's Flagler's personal architects. He hires them when they're kids, at 24 and 25 years old. He gets them from the White architecture firm in New York City, which is still an architecture firm in New York City, but they are educated in Paris, France. They go to the Paris Architecture School. So they have seen all this European architecture and they incorporate it into everything Mr. Flagler wants to do here. He wants to keep it a European city, and those are the two right guys to do it. Now they go on to wild success. Now he hires them when they're kids. Their first big break is Henry Flagler. They design everything Flagler builds in Florida. But they also go on to do things like the New York Public Library is theirs. The House and Senate office buildings in Washington, D.C. They also designed the courtyard that houses the Tomb of the Unknown at Arlington National Cemetery. So these guys are no joke. But Henry Flagler hires them when they're kids. You're gonna see that throughout Henry Flagler's history. He always hires the right people in the right place to do the right job. And that is a key thing for somebody who is a great manager. You can't know everything. You just have to hire the people that know everything.
And you know, he's a Capricorn. Hello, top of the line. Either work with the best or, you know, I'm just saying, I know the personalities, as you know. Hard worker, but he wanted to create landmarks, and he did, I think so. I mean, we're standing here, how many more years later?
He wanted to build something that a legacy would outlast him, which is exactly what he's done.
Yeah, he has. And another thing I noticed, he's fusing different styles. It's not like he just stuck to that one Spanish colonial revival,
he did not.
Renaissance, like you mentioned, the Moorish. It's all the fusion of styles, which we're doing right now. We're creating a castle in Wellington, Florida.
Awesome.
Everybody knows about that castle. Well, honey, they all came from history because we fused 300 years of styles in there. Well, how many years are fused in here in Augustine?
You're across centuries of construction. The Alhambra Castle is built in 1300s. So that's what that was mimicked after.
Yes.
But they fused that with all the architecture throughout Europe's history into everything here. And you did hit on the point that architects are always making a statement about everything. Nothing's done for just happenstance. Everything means something. And as we step into the courtyard, I want to explain some of this stuff. It's a little more obscure that people usually don't get when they take the tour of Flagler College. I'll explain some specific stuff that is.
We want that stuff. We want the stuff you don't find in the textbook. You know, in the textbooks, we want real stories. I mean, you know all of this because you're how many years have you been doing this?
I've been in tourism 23 years here in St. Augustine.
Right.
I've lived in the area more than 50, which is really hard to do. That means I got here when I was -15.
There you go. Oh, you're catching up to me almost. I'm kidding. No, that's amazing. So all of these things that you know about, and then you see them happening as we go, which we'll talk about later. But yes, let's show them that.
Let's head into the courtyard here.
Oh, we're going through gates. Yes, look at that. Historic tours, guys. You can the real one today from the real.
This is original to the hotel, by the way.
Here we go. Let's talk about these gates. Look at these gates real quick. These look kind of like Spanish revival kind of look.
But they're also very castle oriented. They make it appear like a castle. This whole thing can be raised up to have a huge entrance, or the individual door can be opened, or it can be locked up tight to this very day.
Right.
Come on through.
Love that. Love that. Ooh, don't get your tire stuck in that.
So as we,
I'm kidding.
So as we look
right.
into the
Ooh,
courtyard,
look at this.
I want to take you back
That's
to
magnificent.
1888 when this was done. Now this, like I said earlier, is the Ponce de Leon Hotel, actually known as the Hotel Ponce de Leon to get it in the right order. We're seeing the fountain in the center of the courtyard. But like I said earlier, the architects always making a statement with everything. Ponce de Leon, who's the namesake of the hotel, is the founder of Florida for the Spanish in 1513. Now, when the Spanish would claim a new land, the ceremony was the highest ranking officer on the ship would come ashore, draw his sword, raise it to God, would claim the land in the name of God, and then he would plunge his sword in the ground to complete the claiming of the land. If you look back to the fountain, that's the hilt of Ponce de Leon's sword. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So it's Ponce de Leon claiming this land. Now, if we step a little closer to the fountain, you'll see that there are 12 frogs around the fountain, that is representing the months of the year, and then 4 turtles, which represent the seasons. And you can always tell which turtle represents winter because it has the turtleneck on. That is the worst joke you'll ever hear in St. Augustine. Now, one story you will not hear on any, and we see a group going by. I can't recommend more of the Flagler history tours. These kids do a fantastic job with their educational tours. It is a tour of the school, but in the hotel, from the hotel perspective. But there's one story you won't hear on that tour. Now, as you look at the structure, it's poured concrete. Almost the entire structure is. But the wall around the fountain is actual coquina stone. It's the only coquina stone found in this entire structure. And it could not be used as part of the support because this stone has been damaged. When this hotel was being built, St. Augustine is hit with the Great Fire of 1887. Now back then in 1887, things were different. When the fire breaks out, all the workers that are working to build the hotel put down what they're doing and go to help put out the fire. That's how society worked back then. Well, one thing that happened during the fire, first of all, the fire was so bad it burned down the fire department. That's a terrible fire. But part of the Catholic Church here in St. Augustine, which is the Cathedral Basilica, was damaged during the fire, and one of their coquina walls collapsed from the heat. Now, once coquina is heat damaged, it can't be used in construction to support any weight anymore. It becomes too brittle. So Mr. Flagler is a huge proponent of faith. He asked the Catholic Church if he can use those stones to build this wall around the courtyard. And that's where these stones actually come from. You can see some of them still do have some of the ash on them and stuff from the fire itself. But Mr. Flagler was a huge proponent of faith, and he supported all faiths wherever he went. In fact, if we get a shot later of the Catholic Church, the Cathedral Basilica, the building dates to 1799. But there's a huge clock tower to the left of it that is 1887. Mr. Flagler gave that clock tower as a gift to the Catholic Church in exchange for them allowing him to use this wall to incorporate into his hotel. Now, one thing about Henry Flagler that is very dear to my heart, I'm going to show you right over here. We have a statue of Mr. Flagler. But along with the statue, he's holding his best friend. This is Delos, Mr. Flagler's dog. Mr. Flagler is a dog person. Delos was a Spitz. And he said later in his life, nothing brought him and his wife more pleasure than none of the riches they had, but their dog Delos. He was very special to him. Mr. Flagler's a dog person, which is very dear and dear to my heart as well, because I and my wife are big dog people. So this is the man himself. Now, I want you to think Mr. Flagler was one of these elitists. He was not. He actually always saw himself as a poor boy that just made good. He never looked down on people that didn't have as much money as he did. In fact, his head of housekeeping here at the Ponce de Leon Hotel was personally listed in his will because she took care of his baby her whole life. And she died a few months before he did, but her family benefit. Mr. Flagler, like I said, appreciated, as long as you worked hard and contributed to society, he didn't look down upon you. In fact, to endear themselves to the city of St. Augustine every season, because the hotel's only open during the winter season, usually January through March. When the season started, Mr. Flagler would have a grand celebration here at the Ponce de Leon Hotel, but everybody in St. Augustine was welcome to it. As long as they dressed appropriately, they were welcome to the festivities. He didn't want them to see it as just coming in and using their area. He wanted to be part of the community, and he was. Now, he continues to build the railroad south, continues to build luxury hotels and refurbish luxury hotels along the way. Ormond Beach, Daytona, Palm Beach, Miami, and eventually builds a second hotel in Key West. He passed away before that one was completed, but the Casa Marina is still there today, luxury hotel. The only other Flagler hotel in existence as a hotel that he built, the Breakers in Palm Beach. Still considered one of the 10 most luxurious hotels in the world, but his first was this one, the Ponce de Leon.
So when I try to think back in time, I'm trying to imagine obviously the type of people coming, the way they were dressed, their fashion at the time. This is the elite.
Absolutely.
I mean, what families were visiting these hotels to these? I imagine these grand ballrooms, these grand dining rooms, this grand, obviously the lobby. It's all about luxury at the end of the day. He was perceiving that. He was bringing that into this hotel.
Absolutely.
What families were here? I want to know what families walked through that
So first
main
of
door.
all, this is by invitation only.
Ooh, by
Yeah,
invitation.
by invitation
you guys
only.
got that. You guys were invited, and here you are. So we continue with by invitation only. Oh, I like that.
It's the 400 families of New England.
400 families.
Now, the 400 families of New England are basically the European elites, the aristocracy from Europe that has come to the United States. So they're old European money. Flagler's not one of those. He is the new money, and actually he was looked down upon originally. Eventually, though, Mr. Flagler, Mr. Rockefeller, their piles of money got so tall you couldn't look down on them anymore because they're looking down at you. They are some of the richest people in the world, and eventually they incorporate into those 400 families. But that's who's staying at this location. We have 5 U.S. presidents stayed here. We have Babe Ruth stayed here. Mark Twain stayed here. And they're just the Carnegies, the Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers, all that big money's here. The Morgans, all that big money's here. But also they're rubbing elbows with the locals of St. Augustine as well. So this was an interesting dynamic, having all that money and all that associated with such a tiny little old town.
Amazing, amazing. And what was the year that this became actually a college? What was that year when?
Okay, so this is a hotel until 1966. At which time the owner at that point, Mr. Flagler's nephew by marriage, and I'll get to his name in just a moment, but he is approached by Mount Ida College out of Massachusetts. And they want to purchase this hotel and convert it into a woman's college. Now, he thinks it's run its course as a luxury hotel at that point. To save the structure from any demolition ever, he decides that, yes, he will sell it to the college to be turned into a woman's college. His only condition, name it after the man who built it. And that's why it's called Flagler College. Mr. Flagler would have never named this thing after himself. He despised naming things after himself. He thought it was an insult to God to put your name on it. Extremely humble, especially for the power and money that he possessed. Absolutely. Amazing. Lawrence Lewis Jr., that's the guy, the nephew, that actually sold this to Mount Ida College in Massachusetts that became Flagler College. So it reopens in 1968 as that woman's college, and it struggles a bit. 1971, they go co-ed, and she's been off and running ever since. Now, today it's a 4-year private liberal arts college, about 2,500 students, give or take, about $40,000 to $50,000 a year to go
so
here.
It's an arts college?
Liberal arts.
Liberal arts
College. So general studies.
Okay.
General studies college.
Ooh, okay. Mm.
but very highly respected academically. And even for 2,500 students, they have a really good sports programs as well. They're very successful. And you're going to school in literally an architectural masterpiece.
Yeah, I'll say.
By
I
the way,
mean,
one of my favorite features about this is if you look up on the walls, you see that those dragon heads poking out of the wall. Now that looks like they're downspouts for like a drainage system.
oh yes.
They're not.
Mm, mm,
Those are
mm.
light fixtures.
Oh, they're actually light fixtures. We
When
thought
the
they were.
hotel
Oh, look at that.
opens, each and every room has electric lights. Now, this is January of
That's
1888. This is the first hotel in the world to be completely lit with electricity.
wow.
In fact,
Mm.
they had to have their own generators because there's no power grid. So the generators that were built that were used to power the electricity here, 5 huge dynamos, coal-fired steam generators, but they were actually created by Thomas Edison himself, another personal friend of Mr. Flagler's. But those are light fixtures, and when they would have the hotel operating, they would have red lights in the dragon's mouth so it looked like they were fire-breathing dragons.
Oh, I know someone that would go nuts just for those dragons. They collect dragons. Spot the dragon, guys. Spot the dragon. They're all over here in this courtyard. And there were light fixtures. One of the first.
Oh, they did. This is the first hotel in the world to be completely lit with electricity.
Yeah.
First in the world.
And they used dragons to really show. So it was red when the room was occupied, or is it white? I mean, regular light.
It would just be regular lights in the light. But you know what? A lot of these people, even though they're super rich, they weren't used to electric lights. That's a brand new technology. And honestly, they had a lot of the folks weren't using the electric lights because they were afraid of electricity. The staff, part of their duties was to go around and turn the lights off and on for the guests.
Amazing, amazing.
Now, we
Okay.
were just in the front of the hotel,
Ooh.
but that's not the entrance. Because to get here, let's say you're coming from New York City.
Mhm.
Well, you're traveling 72 hours. You are not exactly presentable. The entrance is actually on the middle of the old hotel, and we're going to walk around there. I'm going to show you the actual
amazing.
entrance. So we're going to walk through the rotunda. We'll come back to
Let's-
the rotunda,
let's walk
but I
through
want to
the
show you the
rotunda.
entrance. So let's walk through that.
Yes. I mean, when I see this, it speaks to me like you have arrived. Look at this grand entrance. The arch is surrounded. It's actually surrounding the doors. You know, I can only imagine those are oak carved wood doors.
Absolutely, and 4 inches thick.
Oh, 4 inches thick, guys. They don't make them like they used to. I gotta tell you that. And all this work here, this terracotta color, I could read Ponce de Leon. So it actually is engraved with all these dimensional. What was this material? It looks like bricks.
It
but
is
that this
terracotta. It's
it is,
actually
so it's-
terracotta. Yes.
So it's a cast terracotta. How do they build this? I mean, look at the detail here.
Okay, it's going to sound odd, but all the terracotta you see in St. Augustine from that period actually comes from New Jersey.
Oh, why not?
Hotbed of terracotta at that point, apparently.
Interesting.
But you know, New Jersey has a lot of natural resources, a lot of clay
Yes.
deposits, so this is where this would come from. Now, all the carving architecture you'll see in the city of St. Augustine, we never had the talent for that here. Not originally. It's all either European immigrant or European.
I
So,
believe that. Yeah.
Mr. Flagler's got to bring workers in
Yes.
because when he first comes to St. Augustine, the population's about 2,000. So we don't even have the people enough to. He's building hotels and churches and railroads all at the same time. So he's bringing in labor force.
Yeah, he had to bring in European master craftsmen to
Absolutely.
create this type of carving, this type of detailing that you see. Even the mosaic. This mosaic, is this original mosaic or
Yes.
has this been restored?
No, that's original.
It's original, and then the shell. So, and I know everything has a meaning. I know when we
Absolutely.
walk through the
Everything here
rotunda,
means something.
even the paintings on the ceiling, there's a reason for it. It's not just done randomly. Everything is planned and detailed when it comes to not just the architecture, but every little detail that surrounds throughout it. And as we go inside, oh my gosh.
Some of the paintings
Mm-hmm.
inside on the ceiling, you'll see the more famous explorers of the time. You'll see Ponce de Leon and others. But you, instead of Pedro Menendez, who established St. Augustine, you will see the French explorer, Jean Ribaud. And Jean Ribaud and those French were actually slaughtered by the Spanish. So that was a political move even in the 1880s. They didn't want to offend the French that were traveling to come here, so they put their explorer up there instead of the gentleman that actually executed that one.
Yeah, well, you know how that works. But
Politics
okay.
has been here since day one. It's always going to be part of our lives.
Oh, wow.
We'll step through the rotunda. I won't talk about that. We'll come back and talk about that. But we're going to go down to the actual entrance.
Ooh, we're
to
going to
the
the
hotel.
actual entrance, guys. Let's go through the rotunda. Don't go nuts like I did because I went nuts looking at these domes and this column. You guys, we'll come back to this. This forget about the mosaicos. Okay, that's not, I get excited. I can't help it. I
It's hard to
can't. I
pass
go
through this
nuts. Oh
area
my
without
God, look at this.
actually stopping and talking
Oh,
about it.
yes. Okay, we're following. Yes. Okay. Stay there, guys. We're coming. We're walking through a tunnel. Here we go. Oh, this looks
So
like
we're
the.
actually in the real entrance to the Ponce de Leon Hotel. The front is not the entrance. What you see here is a passageway that the horses and carriages would be. Now, people have come in by train. The train
Yes.
station is 4 blocks to the west, just over San Sebastian River. Then they would get on a horse and carriage. The carriage would drive through the front of this college, or excuse me, front of the hotel, around and come right through here. And this is where they would disembark. So this is your actual entrance.
right here,
Because
so-
they are dirty and dusty and messy from traveling, and you don't want to present that in this kind of society. So they would come here, unload here. There's freight elevators right here that would take the bags up to the rooms. The gentlemen would go up and take care of the bill this season. The ladies would go
Did
to
they have to prepay for the room?
They would.
I mean,
yes.
there was no credit cards at the time.
No credit cards. They come up
Exactly.
and just pay cash money for the room, all
so
up
I
front.
imagine if you're staying here for a month or 3 weeks, you just pay out the whole thing. What about incidentals?
Absolutely.
I wonder how that works. You know, the meals and things like that. You know.
That's all included in this. Yeah. They're feeding you meals as well.
Hotel. Amazing. Okay, go on. Sorry, I get excited.
Now the ladies would go to the ladies' parlor because they have to be presentable. So they have the ladies' parlor where they can freshen up before anybody sees them actually out in public. But this is your entrance right here. Wow. But we're at a good spot because I'm going to walk you right out here and show you from the outside the old grand ballroom. And that's the center of the Tiffany glass in this structure.
Those horse carriages going as you go through the carport, horse port, carriage port, and you unload yourself and have them bring your baggage up to the suite, and then get dressed. Oh, I love that lifestyle. What a lifestyle. Talk about luxury, huh? That's luxury.
So right above us here,
what do we got?
This rotunda is one half,
Ooh.
there's another room on the other side, of your grand ballroom. And this is the room that features 72 different Tiffany stained glass windows. These are all Tiffany stained glass windows right here. And this was the centerpiece. This is where you had all your big events.
At night from outside, the way those Tiffany colors would just light
Absolutely.
up at night.
It still looks that way at night.
We got to come back at night and take some of that.
And I can't recommend the tour more because that's how you get to go inside the old grand ballroom, which is today's dining hall. It's a little bit scary watching college kids eat. But it does feature that largest collection of Tiffany windows.
It's a different vibe going on, but the architecture still stands.
The architecture stands the test of time.
I can imagine this vaulted ceiling, barrel ceilings. I can imagine hand-painted.
Well, there's huge mosaics on the top of the ceilings in there, and there's 2 levels of the Tiffany glass. It is so impressive. So I cannot recommend going in the ballroom more. We're not allowed to do that. I'm not a student, or I don't have a child going here.
Let's imagine it. Let's imagine it. If I'm standing out here, and I see that it's like a half a circle curve. You're saying there's another one on the other end.
Yes, this entire thing is round.
It's kind of like the shape of a football field.
It's actually perfectly round.
Oh, it's a full.
It's full. Actually, it's a little bit oval. I guess it's a little bit oval to go through there. So it is
but then a little in
more
between. So you have another one like this,
on the other side.
like a twin of this
huge
on the other side.
area.
About how many square feet was that ballroom? I'm curious. I mean, if you have to calculate.
I would guess 3,000 at least.
3,000. Oh, honey, I'll have another party there. Oh, let's plan it. Can you imagine if we put a party wearing those costumes, costumes now? But
they were just what they wore back then. Absolutely.
Like, yeah. So I mean, that would be amazing. And they already had, you said, electrical, so the chandeliers must have been
spectacular.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Actually, this did have 4 Tiffany chandeliers in it.
Ooh, are they still there?
I think they've replaced them. I think they took them down just because they were too valuable and they didn't want anything happening.
Probably in the museum somewhere, I'm sure, or who knows. But the windows alone say everything. The colors and I like how they did the in between columns with a little bit trellis kind of a column.
Absolutely.
And it just wraps, it's like arch over square, so it's dimensional this way and it's dimensional this way. So it's got a lot of depth and form. And then you have these corbels, I guess because it's overextending little balconies.
Right.
Was people able to come out the balcony, or is it just visual from the exterior?
The balconies are just visual from the. This one here, maybe over the carriageway, but these are not right here.
Right, so it's visual, so it continues. The balustrades just carry all around depth and dimension, obviously.
Exactly.
Very nice. Okay,
So
so
as we scan over this way,
uh-huh.
you'll notice there's no fence or chain occupying that area beside the college because, or the hotel, because back in 1888 when this is built, what you're looking at over there is a huge orange grove. It's part of the Markland Plantation home,
Well,
and it
yeah,
was an orange
Florida,
plantation.
orange. Ooh.
But Dr. Andrew Anderson, who actually sold this land to Henry Flagler, he owned the Markland Plantation, and guests were invited to take nice romantic strolls out through the orange groves or even carriage rides through them as well, because oranges bloom in the winter. So it smelled of orange blossoms as a very nice romantic touch to be able to
That
smell.
must have been magnificent. I can only imagine that because you guys can't get the scent, but imagine, I'm not sure, but smelling the oranges yet? No.
And
No,
realize
I'm getting it.
the
I'm getting
beach isn't a draw at that time. It's the environment, it's the warmth. It's not the beach. The beach is not a big deal at that moment. It's all the warmth, but also stuff like this. And in fact, it is said during the colonial, the oranges were so prevalent here that you knew you were getting toward the port of St. Augustine because you could smell the orange blossoms at least 10 miles out to sea.
So he actually
Come on, ladies, we're not doing it. You guys come
Hello,
on.
go
We're not
ahead.
holding
Hey.
anybody up here.
Oh, his classes began a couple days ago, right?
Well, no, they just started moving
Oh,
in.
they started. Oh, the
Classes
students.
don't start for another week, but this is move-in weekend, so you see a lot of the youngsters moving in here to the college.
I would come to this college just to be surrounded by this architecture. I'm sorry. I mean, I just love the environment, the look, the vibe, everything. And so the other question I had, imagine this, okay? People were in the orange groves having their, their moment and with all of that. And then would that be an afternoon thing? And it's not that they're going to get a cup of tea. I mean, do they get fresh squeezed orange juice?
Absolutely, because oranges are ripening through the end of the winter season.
Okay, I can imagine. I'm sure that China had to be to die for. Every detail matters. I can imagine the silverware had to be, probably had a custom design, the dishes, the china, the tablecloths, the furniture in there. I can only imagine how Henry Flagler went to town with all those details as well. I mean, I wish I could see them, but eventually, if I had to design one, inspired by this, I would go with up to the last little napkin.
Well, see, Mr. Flagler wasn't a lot of hands-on with that because he knew he didn't know a lot about that. He had, excuse me, the finest artists in the world working. In fact, almost every living famous artist on the planet was working on this hotel when it was being built. In fact, in the rotunda where you see the huge murals up on the ceiling,
Yes.
they were actually doing that right up until the finish and the opening of the hotel. Originally, they have scaffolding so the artists can be on their backs and they can be doing their painting or whatever, but the scaffolding's got to come down earlier than they're finished. They're actually on the top of these giant ladders, these world famous artists up there finishing their artwork just before the hotel opens.
Oh, honey, I know how that one goes. When you have a deadline and you're still doing the finishing touches and you still have workers there and you got to manage, you got to just make it happen. At the end of the day.
Also, those famous artists,
Yeah.
Mr. Flagler builds the entire back of the hotel that are all art studios. So these well-to-do patrons can go right over there and buy original artwork from the world's most famous artists.
Talk about a full luxury experience. He created not just a luxury hotel, it was a whole experience from the minute you drove up in your carriage with your horses. Wow, amazing.
And the travel of the day was railroad. Automobiles, not a big thing yet. So the private rail cars was your status symbol.
Was he one of the railways too?
He owned the Florida East Coast Railway. Yes, it still runs today up and down the east coast of Florida.
Vertical operation. I mean, he brings them here. And
that's how he came here.
Yeah.
He actually got involved originally with something called PICO, which is the Plant Investment Company. And what PICO was doing, this is just post-Civil War, they're buying up all these southeastern railroads that have been destroyed by the Union Army, and they're refurbishing them and they're making them profitable. So he's an investor in that. He's one of the 3 investors in that company, and they come to Jacksonville. But Mr. Plant wants to use the railroad for what railroads are used for, freight. So he wants to build his railroad from Jacksonville to Tampa because it's a big deep water port at that point. So he's going to do that. Well, Flagler wants to go down the East Coast. So he decides to make his own company, Florida East Coast Railway. And he starts building a railroad. He brings the railroad right into St. Augustine. Now, that's how his guests would arrive. Now, this is a big boom for Mr. Flagler because the state of Florida loves what he's doing with the railroad. It's developing the area. And at that point in our state's history, we are the poorest and least populated of all 44 states. We're so poor, we can't even afford to build our own infrastructure. Mr. Flagler can with that railroad. So they offer him a charter. And this charter allows Henry Flagler to build infrastructure in the state of Florida in the form of railroad in exchange for Florida land. The deal ends up netting Henry Flagler for each mile of rail he builds in the state. He received 3,480 acres of Florida land along the tracks. Mr. Flagler knows a good deal when he hears it. By the time he passes away in 1913, he has extended the railroad all the way to Key West, Florida. That's over 500 miles of direct rail, plus all the rail that's running in the state. Needless to say, Florida owes him a lot of land. To make the land pay off, he creates something called the Flagler Model Land Company, which is a real estate company that he creates to sell off this land. So he makes quite the fortune doing that.
Amazing.
Now, just to give you an idea of how much, at one point, Henry Flagler owned 5% of the state of Florida outright.
5% of the state of Florida.
And his is all East Coast. So what is today the most valuable parts of Florida
East
were all.
Coast.
Now, it was worthless until Mr. Flagler took the railroad there, and then it became ultra valuable. So he literally got worthless land and made it ultra valuable on his own.
Wow. And so the other question I have, okay, is the Breakers Hotel in Palm Beach. You mentioned that.
Right.
How far out? I mean, how much later from this magnificent structure? How much later did he build that?
He is incrementally extending the railroad south. So he doesn't get to Palm Beach until 1892. That's 4 years later.
Yes. Okay.
So that's when he starts building the original breakers. And it burns down in 1905, and he builds it back again. So a lot of that was destroyed in a fire after Mr. Flagler's life, but a lot of that still exists today. But he also built his mansion there. It's right down the street from the breakers. It's literally across the street and about 3 blocks down. You can stand on the balcony at Flagler's mansion and look at the breakers.
Wow.
It is called Whitehall, and it is today a Flagler museum, and it is spectacular. And if you want to see some cool architecture,
we're going there next for sure.
Go to the Whitehall Flagler Museum in Palm Beach.
Amazing.
And I love his style of decoration, because this, first of all, was a mansion built for the mansion in Palm Beach is built for his third wife. So it's how he wants things built. His library looks like my library if I had that much money. It's functional. It's gorgeous, but it's functional. And he really appreciated things working as well.
I love it. Okay. So where else can we get more inspiration and more?
Well, we'll walk back into the rotunda.
Yes, okay.
Now, I will step away as the filming is being done, because I'm not supposed to give tours inside Flagler College, around it, and then it is public space, but still it's getting into a gray area, and I'm really good friends with the people at Flagler, so I don't want to step on anybody's toes. But inside the rotunda, first of all, notice everything, including the tile floor.
Yes.
You'll notice it is all made up of tiny pieces of tile. It's mosaic. It took them the entire 23 months that they were building this hotel. They started day one doing that floor, and they finished just before the place opened. That is a ton of work. But there are 2 tiles that are actually out of position on the design. And that was done on purpose at the instruction of Henry Flagler, because the floor was going to be perfect. But nothing can be perfect that's not created by God. So he intentionally made it imperfect because he didn't want it to be an insult to God.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I understand.
Absolutely.
I understand, totally.
Now, in the art, all that carved wood and stuff, it's all original. There were upgrades done throughout the years, like the restrooms are from the era where this was during World War II, when this was housing for the Coast Guard. So a lot of that has like a military structure to it as well. But they preserved a ton of the original architecture.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay.
In fact, the kids that stay in the dorms, some of the dorms are old hotel rooms that have been renovated.
I can imagine what that hotel rooms look like. I mean, were they suites? Were they all suites, or just?
They were. The big suites were up front. That's the most expensive ones. Now, the lesser price rooms were toward the back because it was by the generator house. Due to the noise factor, it was a little less expensive. Right. But 540 luxury rooms, and sold out its first 7 years. So it did very well for itself.
Wow. Great building. All right, so we're going to walk up to the
Just walk through the rotunda, absolutely. We'll get some good. I'm going to talk about it. I'll probably stand outside.
Yes, we're going to take videos, and then we're going to come back and talk about it.
Excellent. So we'll go back to the courtyard. Awesome.
Let's go.
But imagine you're pulling into this area. This is where you're getting dropped off. You're hot and tired from traveling, 72 straight hours from New York. The elevators take your bags up to your room. By the way, these are hydraulic elevators with water power. So they have huge water tanks on the top of the structure. So if the power goes out, the elevators still work because gravity is powering that water to power the elevators. Oh, and that air conditioner felt good?
Oh, look what I found. Oh, look what I found.
By the way, to let you guys know,
Ooh,
the
okay.
hotel never had air conditioning,
No air
even up
conditioning.
until
That's
1966.
no air conditioning. How
Because
did
when
they
this is
manage?
designed, the architects have no idea air conditioning is going to be invented. So they
Right.
create these thick concrete walls, these huge breezeways that are pointed the right direction to catch the sea breezes. So they didn't need to have air conditioning,
Amazing.
although it's nice.
Yeah. No, I feel it
By the
here.
way,
It
a little
feels
tidbit
true.
of history. The air conditioner is invented by a Willis Carrier, who is from of all places, Buffalo, New York. A guy from
Oh yeah,
Buffalo, New York
like New
invented
York
the air
needs air
conditioner.
conditioning like we need it, but okay.
He should have a statue in every city in Florida,
Oh man,
let's
yes.
be honest.
Tell me about this particular Tiffany window.
This is not a Tiffany window. This is later on. Tiffany didn't do a lot of scenes.
Interesting
He was
to
more
know.
designed.
So he was more into designs. We'll show the difference between.
It is built in the essence of a Tiffany window, but it's actually not a Tiffany window.
Interesting. So that is not a Tiffany window, but
Right.
it still has the stained glass
The Tiffany
design,
flair to it.
But that's not a traditional Tiffany design.
Tiffany is almost always seen, always designs, almost never scenes.
Yes.
He tried to do a few scenes, but that just wasn't his thing.
Yeah.
But that should have been left to muralists, who did great scenes and great stained glass artwork in St. Augustine. And Flagler's personal church has stained glass in it, but it's not Tiffany. It's created by a gentleman named Herman T. Schledermunt, who was famous in his day, but he did grand scenes with stained glass, and he also did some of the murals inside the rotunda as well.
Oh, the murals with a gold leaf background and painted right over the
The
gold leaf.
best artists in the world did it. All the good artists in the world were occupied in St. Augustine, Florida at one point.
I want to know where they were coming from. What countries? Italy, Spain. I want to know what countries were these artists from.
It's your most revered artists in the world. And they're all coming here because,
Fuse talent.
to be honest, and most people know this, being a living artist, you're not really rich. Artwork gets valuable when the artist dies.
True.
So these guys are
history.
struggling, even though they're very talented artists, and they had access. If they came and did this, they had access to all these rich clients. So there was a win-win going on there.
Yes,
Absolutely.
to show off their work and what they can do. And then all these people coming to the hotel and actually witness their work in person. Those artists, I'm sure they got phone calls, not phone calls, but I'm sure.
They were traveling with the winter season like everybody else is. This place is only open 3 months out of the year, but those people are basically constantly on vacation. They're in
excuse me.
they're in Newport, Rhode Island. They're in the Adirondacks. They're later on down South Florida. Now, Florida was interesting because everybody wintered in Florida at the same time. So what these super rich families have places to stay at all the hotels. And they would just bounce back and forth up and down the state on the railroad, depending on who was having the biggest party at the time. So they, even though it may be 1/3 occupied, it's sold out. Everything is here.
Amazing.
It was really, and it's the beginning of the vacation industry in the state of Florida. Mr. Flagler puts Florida on the map as a vacation destination. Absolutely. He's the same reason in the 1960s, a gentleman by the name of Walt Disney came to a little crossroads called Orlando, bought up a bunch of swampland and built that monster we have down there today. So anybody that vacations in Florida, no matter what level, socioeconomic level they are, they can trace it all the way back to one man, Henry Flagler, and his vision for this state.
Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous.
But let's go ahead and and realize as
Notice
you're walking up
this mosaic. Is this original?
Yes, it is.
This is original mosaic.
Absolutely.
Right here. Notice that.
And all of this wood paneling is so gorgeous.
Beautiful. We come on up. I notice all this rich woodwork with all the elements, the rosettes, and all gives it that rich, elegant arches as we go. Yeah. The balustrades, the wood balustrades, and detailing on all parts. No, the ceiling. Notice the dome in the middle of the rotunda. Notice the dome with the groin ceilings, all hand painted with figures, and everything symbolic, if you notice, as well. All painted over gold, solid wood columns, all solid oak. How gorgeous is that? Solid oak. Oh, for the detailing. Look at this detailing. All of these shields. They're like Renaissance ladies, but it's a Spanish Renaissance revival all around us in this rotunda, in the middle. If I stand here, I feel the magnificent architecture here. It even feels cooler the way the air flows here. And then all around me, details. There's not 1 inch that was not thought of. The entryways, you have these pediment designs of rich Renaissance motifs, but the dimension of them are just unbelievable. I go nuts when I see this. Look at this. And then I noticed another technique that I really like, that it actually looks like cameos. It looks like a cameo. You know the cameos that you wear? Look at this piece here. This is like a concave niche. And if you look closely, there's actual relief. They're not flat. They're not Trompe l'oeil where they're painted. They're actually reliefs. They are different depths. And then the two-tone giving it that cameo appearance because it has that hand-painted shading and rounded with all the that up in that contrast. That's such true artistry. Going nuts here. I mean, I'm designing my next castle with all these details. I just gotta get fabulous work. Oh my God, I gotta get a lot of fabulous major craftsmen. A lot of beautiful, beautiful detailing going on here. The mosaic floor doesn't stop. It keeps going. It keeps going. Here, we're gonna stand here and I'm gonna show you how this mosaic rotunda just goes. Are you here? Look at that. It's a giant, if I had to guess the diameter of this, I would have to say, I don't know exactly, but maybe 20-foot diameter bordered medallion. And that's what sets this whole rotunda apart. And connected to the ceiling with the architectural details that he is talking about, all the different artists, the different European artists that are coming from all over to do the hand-painted techniques on the groin ceiling, gold leaf, and then hand paint on top of the gold leaf. What a technique. Look at how that is just surrounding us. We're gonna go outside and we're gonna look at the exterior architecture a little bit further. And right here, oh my God, I go nuts in there. I could just stand
Isn't it
there.
crazy?
Right, I could just stand there and look at every detail. And when I design my interiors, these are the things that inspire me. I mean, all my life, that's what I've been doing when I travel all over Europe. And little did I know that right here in Florida stands these
Absolutely.
landmarks with all this craftsmanship, all this detailing, all this history. Obviously, that's why I believe history is what sets design, because all the design, it's not like we're reinventing the wheel. We didn't just
Exactly.
start designing things. We are inspired by styles. We are inspired by eras, by different things that happened throughout the centuries. And then you use those elements and all those
And we
particular
should.
things. Oh,
We
I
should
know. I agree.
utilize all of that
Yes,
because
yes,
it pays homage to our
yes,
history.
yes.
It tells us where we're from,
Agreed.
and it's kind of a mirror. We're looking back at ourselves.
It really is. It
Absolutely.
really is. I truly agree with you. And I mean, I'm doing it subconsciously, I guess, but I'm sure, a lot of people do it as well. But that's where it comes from. It comes from seeing something that it triggers something in your memory and you liked it. So when you're putting things together, I'm talking about from a designer's point,
Sure.
that's how I see it when I'm creating. And I'm even fusing modern with classic. Whoever said that everything has to be classic? When I say classic, because I'm talking about not trendy or that. But whoever said you can't fuse all the styles together? Actually, Henry Flagler did fuse
Did
styles.
exactly that.
He did. He was way Why not? I mean, if you go to Spain, you're going to see just the Spanish architecture. You go to Italy, you're going to see Italian. But here, he took all those and he fused them into this landmark.
Right. He trusted his architects to have the knowledge to do that. Absolutely.
Fabulous.
And they got it done.
Well, what else would you like to tell all our people watching, that relates to obviously history, design, architecture, inspiration, so that they can, continue learning and seeing how everything evolves. I'm always saying design evolves
Hmm.
and it sure does. It's evolving right now as we speak, guys.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely it is.
what would you tell them? What would you tell all my friends here?
Well, it pays respect to who we are. And we evolve as a society, and styles change throughout history. But pay attention to where we came from, because those that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat the mistakes of it. And that's always going to happen. So in architecture, we need to kind of do that too. Some stuff hasn't worked throughout history in architecture. We kind of need to ignore that and move on and evolve what we're doing in the right direction. So I greatly appreciate the history here.
Definitely. Yeah.
And also, I
Thank
want
you.
people to realize the
Yes.
place we've been walking around today, the Ponce de Leon Hotel, it opens in January of 1888.
Okay.
We are 23 years past the end of the Civil War, and this is here.
Wow.
To
Wow.
put that in perspective,
Wow.
September 11th was more than 23 years ago. It was actually 24 years, 25 years ago.
Hmm.
So it's it's not that long. 2 decades after the Civil War, and we're seeing places like this. The Gilded Age is where America becomes America. It's that time frame loosely between the Civil War and the Great Depression. But that's when America becomes America. We go from a third world backwater country coming out of a brutally bloody Civil War. Nobody around the world cares about America. From that point, within the next 4 decades, we become the most dominant economic force in the world. We've become the world's superpower in simply 4 decades. And there's about 25 guys you can give credit to for doing that. And they're the giants of the Gilded Age. Were some of them terrible people? Absolutely they were, but not all of them. And they built this country we live in. No matter how flawed they were, no matter how flawed the systems were, they're part of the reason we got from where we were to where we are now. So that's architecture should reflect that history, and history should reflect all of history, not just the good parts,
Well,
but the
yeah,
bad parts as well.
that's so true, and I believe in that, and I agree with you, and that's why we're here.
Awesome. You're in
See,
the spot. This St. Augustine, for being such a tiny little place, is the crossroads of history. Everything, we're the oldest settlement that continued, and things kept happening here, even though we're a tiny little town. From our founding with 900 total people, dropping down to about 300 at one point. We almost disappeared a couple of times, and we're still only about 12 or 13,000 today. We're a tiny little town, but so much history, so much influence, so much beauty, so much architecture. It's all here in tiny little St. Augustine, Florida.
Yes, and I want to thank you for this incredible history lesson. Oh my God, and architecture and all of those things which I live for. And I want all of you guys to come back. We're going to let you know because we're going to have more live streams here in the St. Augustine. There's so much more to discover. We were talking about all the different things we're going to go show them.
Excellent.
So they will
Excellent.
be coming back. Thank you.